Hello, class. You're all welcome to the Introduction to African History class today once again. And so last week we started looking at colonization in Africa, where we focus on the coming in of the various European nations coming from Western Europe to Africa with the focus of having interaction with Africans and also trying to have access to trade goods and also to establish political control over African nations. Now, when we enter into the 20th century, starting from the 1900s up to the 1960s, there was a major changeover in Africa as the entire continent began to fight for independence. And so, especially from the 1960s, there was a major transition. Almost every African nation began to fight for independence. And so our lesson today is going to focus on African independence movement into the post-war period. And the post-war year, we are focusing strongly on the Second World War, the aftermath of the Second World War. Although Africans began nationalistic activities right after the First World War because they began fighting for their own independence. But after the Second World War, when the European powers had lost, some European powers had lost the Second World War, that intensified the fight for independence in Africa, western part of Africa, eastern part of Africa, southern part of Africa, and even northern part of Africa. And so when you look at what we have on the board as the map of Africa, it indicates the major European powers that colonized the African continent. And so when you look at the northern part of Africa, we have various countries like France, Britain taking control. And then when you come to the central, the western, the eastern, and the southern part of Africa, we have different countries. And so we can talk about the French, the Spaniards, the English, the Belgians, the Portuguese, the Germans. All these were major European nations that colonized African countries. And by virtue of their colonization, each of these colonies became so connected to their colonial masters in that their form of language that they were using were that of their colonial masters. The educational system paralleled that of their colonial masters. Their government, their political, social, economic institutions were all shaped by the European powers. So the European powers or the colonizers determined the given political, social, and economic institution in a particular place in Africa. And so when you look at the map that we have on the board, when we move to western part of Africa, for instance, we had a country like Ghana being colonized by Britain. We have Germany also being colonized. We have Nigeria also being colonized in western part of Africa by the English or Britain. And we have Sierra Leone also being colonized by Britain. And then within the same West Africa, we have a place like Senegal. Senegal in West Africa being controlled by the French. And then in Belgium, we have Belgium taking control over Congo. And so when you also move to other parts of the African map, we have German East Africa. German also controlling different parts of Africa. And when you check on the map as displayed on the board, we have at this far end where the horn of Africa is, where we have indicated as Italian. We have a section which is free. And at the far left-hand side, we also see another section which is also free. And so on your far right hand, that's the broader geography, which is indicated as free. That is the region called Ethiopia. Ethiopia was never colonized by any nation in the world. And so from its inception up to today, Ethiopia has remained as an independent nation in Africa without having any former colonial master. Although the Italians wanted to colonize Ethiopia, but their numerous attempts from 1935 invasions and the second invasion which arose during the Second World War all failed. So Ethiopia continued to remain as free or as independent nation throughout its history. And then on the other hand, that's just closer to where we have indicated as British in orange. Below it, we have another free zone, which is an indication for Liberia. And so Liberia as a country, if you look at its history, Liberia was a region where former slaves in the United States, after being given their freedom, the United States wanted a place to drop the slaves. And so they decided to land them in Africa. And in Africa, the slaves were deposited in modern day Liberia. Now, after the Second World War, there were certain events that led to the higher emergence of nationalism in Africa. And one of these factors was the preaching against racial discrimination. Prior to the emergence of the Second World War, Europeans had begun preaching against racial discrimination. And so after the Second World War, Britain, France, and their allies had won the war. And so the expectation of the Africans or the minority groups or the colonizers, the colonists, had been that once this group of people are preaching against racial discrimination, then after the Second World War, they should give us freedom. They should treat us equally. But it never happened. Even after the Second World War, after Africans had fought for the Europeans, they were still maltreating them. And so that brought a sense of eye-opening in the eyes of the Africans, and they began to challenge the existing status quo. And another point that we can talk about is also the two great wars as an eye-opening forum. Africans had fought in the war, the two great wars on behalf of the Europeans. Before the war, the Africans had the perception that Europeans were demigods. These were individuals that you can't defeat them. But by way of participating in the war, Africans observed Europeans killing each other. They also observed groups like Germany and others being tormented. And so it recreated a new perception about who the Europeans are and who the Western world is. And so Africans begin to have the perception that if indeed these people can kill each other, and if a white man can easily be defeated, then we as a group of blacks can rise up and fight against the white man and fight for our independence. We also have the rise of the educated elite. And so with the emergence of a lot of educated elites in Africa, these were individuals who have studied in the Western world. Some went to the United States, some to England, Britain, France, and other parts of the world to study history, sociology, geography, anthropology, different programs. And so when they return to Africa, as a result of their eye opening from the outside world, they tend to have the perception that now we are all equal and there is the need for us to fight and defend for our rights. And so with the increase in the number of educated elites, these individuals began to incite the local people in places like Ghana, Nigeria, Senegal, and other places. And in the end, they began to champion the cause for independence. And we can also talk about unfulfilled promises. Right from the outbreak of the First World War to the Second World War, Europeans had given Africans numerous promises. In the First World War, Europeans had promised Africans that if they were going to fight on their behalf to defend their enemies, in the aftermath of the war was going to be a blessing for the Africans. But what happened? After the First and the Second World War, the Europeans never honored their promises. They had promised them of releasing the burden on them, reducing taxes, making life better for Africans, but it never happened. And so Africans begin to have a different perspective about Europeans and who they are. And so that ignited them to begin the cause and fight against any form of colonialism in Africa. And lastly, we have the demand for political participation. The Europeans had established a legislative system, executive system, and a judiciary system for their governance. However, if you look at the quota given to Africans at the legislative and executive level, it was at the minimum level. At times, you may have a board of executive members, like 30 people, and you have only 2 Africans. You have the legislative board, and we have only 5 Africans out of about 35 board members. And so Africans decided to fight for equal participation, that even if you are not going to allow us to enjoy equal rights, when it comes to functioning in the executive board, when it comes to functioning in the legislative board, allow our people to also serve on such a council. Because the Africans believe that in as much as their people are being allowed to serve on such council, then their voices will as well be heard. And now when we move to Gold Coast as a case study, Gold Coast, that's the modern day Ghana in western part of Africa. There are a series of activities or events that took place in Ghana and that led to a higher level of nationalistic sentiment being expressed. As you know, we have revolt against the British policies. They revolted against British policies. And they also boycotted European goods. And they decided that with all the goods brought to Ghana or the Gold Coast, they were not going to buy. And so the goods were just there and the people were no more purchasing the goods. And the formation of political parties, the first political party was formed in 1947 in the Gold Coast. That's the political party known as the United Gold Coast Convention Party. That was formed in Ghana, modern day Ghana, that's previously Gold Coast. And it's sought to champion the cause for independence. And also we have demonstration and strikes. In Ghana, they have declared positive action where they call for a sit-down strike. And so people could go to work, and once they get to work, they were not working. You can see them at the offices. You can see them in the classroom, but they are not teaching. You see them in the offices, they are not working. And then lastly, the imprisonment of the Big Six. We have the Big Six individuals who fought for independence. These were 6 individuals. We can talk about Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, Dr. J.B. Dankwa, Akwaje, and others. These individuals were imprisoned by the Europeans because they believed that these individuals had forced the people to fight against the colonial masters. And so they were imprisoned. And after their imprisonment, the people in Ghana or the former Gold Coast decided to rebel against the European powers because these were individuals that they loved so much. And so by way of putting them into prison was to challenge the people that they had to revolt against the Europeans. And so all these issues put together, indeed, when we pick Ghana, for instance, on 6 March 1957, Ghana was able to attain its independence. And then in 1960, we have a series of nations in Africa attaining their independence. In 1960, 1961, 62, throughout up to 1994, when South Africa, the last of all the African nations, attained its independence through the effort of Nelson Mandela. And so, although as it stands now, Africans have attained their independence, but the colonial effect still exists. And when we say colonial effect, what we are trying to say is that despite all the independent movement and the ideology that Africa is independent or Africans are free from the dominance of the white man, yet still, all the colonial institutions, I would say most of the colonial institutions are still in existence. When you go to a place like Ghana, Nigeria, they are still using English as the official language. When you go to Senegal, French, that's the colonial master's language, is still being used. Not only that, the educational system that was established by the Europeans is still in existence in Africa today, in West Africa, East Africa, North Africa, and then Southern Africa. And then trade relations. Most of these nations have a trade relation with their colonial masters. And in most cases, it is the colonial masters who defines the terms and conditions for their trading activities. And most of the nations in Africa still depends on the Europeans to survive. And so although it is true that on paper, Africa has attained its independence because There is no more colonial powers in Africa. There is no more people trying to take control over the African nation. But the colonial effect still exists. It still exists because Africans are still maintaining the institutions that they inherited from their colonial masters. Although in present day Africa, we have places where imperialistic tendencies, thus Europeans still having influence or a say in the political and social affairs of African institutions, but still the colonial effect is still in existence because most of the institutions from the colonial masters have been maintained. Thank you. At this point, I want to pause. If you have any question out of the discussions for today, I've opened the floor for questions from your end.